Hey guys, I'm Davis.
And I'm Aaron.
And in this video, we're going to be making a one-way smart mirror. It's basically a mirror with a monitor right behind it, and the mirror is reflective enough so that you can see yourself, but you can also see information on the TV screen.
So in this video, we're going to spend the first part constructing the frame that holds the TV. And then in the second part, we're going to load some application code that we created onto the mirror. All the links for the parts and the code will be in the description. So let's get started.
So to see how this is all going to come together, we built a 3D model of it on the computer. And first we started out with this mirror that we bought here, and we're just going to build a frame around it using 4 pieces of wood. And we're going to put that mirror right on the back of that frame. And then for the sides of the frame, we're going to use additional 4 pieces of wood, just of a slightly smaller size, to make sort of a box. And then inside the box, we're going to put the monitor. Now to keep the monitor in there, we're going to use 4 corner brackets that we're going to 3D print, and you can see they're just going to screw right into the frame there, and then these triangular pieces are going to keep the mirror up against the monitor. And if you don't have a 3D printer, that's okay, because we're going to be selling these for a pretty cheap price, so you can easily make this yourself, or you could use some other pieces of wood to locate that monitor in there. And then lastly, there's going to be the Raspberry Pi that's going to be controlling this, and that's going to be somewhere inside here, and it's going to be connected to the monitor through HDMI. Alright, so we have all our materials here for building the frame. We have a couple pieces of 1x3s, and then we have a couple pieces of 1x2s. These bigger ones here we're going to use to build the front of the mirror, and these are going to be corner cuts and glued together using some wood glue. And for the sides, we're going to use these here, these 1x2s. They're going to go on the front just like this, and we're going to make a box basically with this. So first of all, we'll build the box and nail these pieces together, these side pieces, and then we're going to put that on top of the front pieces that we did and glue them on there. And after it's all done, we'll put some cherry wood finish on there, and this should make it look real nice. So the length of our monitor is about 13 inches by 22 inches. Now obviously the size of the frame is going to be different depending on the monitor you have, but for what we're doing, we're going to make the length and width of our frame 2.5 inches longer than the dimensions on our monitor. So because for our side pieces, we're going to be butting them up against each other at 90 degrees, each piece has to account for the thickness of the adjacent piece and also the thickness of the corner brackets. So each piece then is going to turn out to be 1.75 inches longer than the width of the monitor, or sorry, the length of the monitor. So we're going to measure 2 pieces at about 15 inches, and we're going to have 2 additional pieces at around 23 3/4 inches. Our mirror is going to be in portrait orientation, so our long pieces are going to be our side pieces, and our short pieces are going to be our top and bottom pieces. And we're going to butt these up right against each other, just like so, and that forms our frame. So originally we thought we were going to nail these pieces together, but we just tried this glue on a couple of scrap pieces of wood, and it turns out that this is really strong. So to make it easier for ourselves, I think we're just going to glue these together. Okay, so the frame is done drying. Looks like it's pretty rigid just from the glue. The nails weren't necessary. And so now what I'm going to do is take the bigger pieces here. This is going to be the front of the frame, and that's going to go right on top. For the front of the frame, we want the angles to look nice and neat. We don't want to look like these angles here. So to make it look better, we want to start these pieces with a 45-degree angle right at the end of the frame, like so. And so each piece will come together at a 45-degree angle. And this piece is going to be about 25 or 24.5 inches long. And then this piece here is going to be about 15 inches and 3/4. Alright, I got 2 of these pieces cut out at a 45-degree angle, and we're just going to glue these here right on top and to each other. And then after that, we'll just finish off with these other 2 pieces. Alright, so just finished the frame here. We put a stain on it, so now it's got a nice rustic look. And what we're going to do now is we got this plexiglass sheet that we found on Amazon. A link will be in the description. It's got a reflective coating on either side, but it also allows light to pass through it. So what we're going to do now is put this on the inside of the frame here and sandwich it in between the frame and the monitor. So one thing we learned when we were doing this is that this stuff is pretty brittle here. So if you're using some thick shears like this with wide blades, that's going to crack the sides a lot. So we had to switch to some thinner scissors. And you also have to make sure it's pretty sharp too, otherwise that'll also make it more likely to break. One thing we learned that helped is that if you're gonna cut it, if you put some tape on there and cut along the edge of the tape like this, then this side may crack a little bit, but when you lift the tape up, it's smooth underneath and you get a straight edge. So that seems like the way to do it. So it looks like we managed to cut it without any major cracks through the glass, but there are some minor cracks in here, and we put some tape on there to make sure that those cracks don't propagate and so that we don't have a bunch of sharp edges on our mirror. Alright, lastly we gotta put the monitor onto the frame. And the way we're gonna do that is with these 3D printed brackets. These are just going to go on all 4 corners of the monitor, and it's going to screw right into the wood, and it's going to sandwich that monitor onto the mirror and up against the frame. So the final product looks a little bit like this. We got brackets on all 4 corners, and I should also mention that it's ideal to get a low profile monitor. This monitor is just over 1/2 inch thick, so it sits in the frame really nicely. And if we flip it around to the other side, it just looks like a plain old mirror.
I'm connected to my Raspberry Pi again through VNC. We have a repository online for SmartMirror. First thing I'm going to want to do is download this repository. So I can open up my terminal and type git clone this repository. So the next thing I want to do is install all the dependencies for this project. So you want to make sure that you have pip installed. If you don't have it installed, you can just Google how to install pip. So I need to run pip install -r requirements.txt, and it will install all of my requirements. And you might have to run sudo pip install -r requirements. Okay, now all of my dependencies are installed. I need to change a few things in my SmartMirror.py file, so I'm going to open that with Vim. So if I type vim smartmirror.py, it will open up my file. And so we have 3 variables set here. One is IP, one is country code, and the third is weather API token. You need to set your IP of your Raspberry Pi to this variable, and it's used for location. So we have a service that gets the location of your IP, and from the location we determine what the weather is, the forecast for the next few days. So if you go to ipchicken.com, it will give you your current IP address. And then the country code is used for news. So it's a ISO country code. Since we are in the US, we put US here, but you can use your own country's country code. And then the weather API token is from a site called forecast.io. So you'll need to make an account on forecast.io. It's free, and it will give you an API token, and then you would just replace it in here. This is the forecast.io site. And if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, there will be a forecast API under developers. And if you register, create an account, it will display a API token, which is just a string value. And so once you get that, you can come back to your smartmirror.py and then replace this token here with your API token. Once I've done that, I can just hit escape and then capital ZZ to save. Okay, now I can go back to my console, and I'll need to do one more thing before I start this. I need to install one more thing, and that is Python Imaging TK. So you can install that with sudo apt-get install python-imaging.tk. And after I run this, I can run python smartmirror.py. And depending on how slow your network connection is, it might take a few seconds to start up. Okay, so now it's loaded. And if I click on the window and press enter, it goes full screen. And then if I press escape, it returns to just the windowed view. So let's hook our Raspberry Pi up to the mirror and set it up so that it runs this application. So now I have my Raspberry Pi hooked up to my smart mirror, and the display is still in landscape orientation, and I need to switch it to portrait. So in the /boot folder, there should be a file called config.txt. If you use sudo vim to open up this config.txt file, you should be able to scroll down to the bottom, and we need to add a variable. So I added this variable called display_rotate, and I set it equal to 1, and this will rotate the monitor so that it is in portrait orientation. So if I press escape and then :WQ exclamation mark, it will save this file. And now I need to restart my Raspberry Pi. Okay, so now we are in portrait orientation. I'm just going to run the application. Now I'll hit enter to make it full screen. And now we have our very own smart mirror set up.
Alright, so that's it for this video. We really hope you liked it. Eventually, we actually want to incorporate some AI components into this mirror where you can talk to the mirror and the mirror will talk back to you. But unfortunately, that was just a little too much for this video. So if you want to stay up to date with all our other videos, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. But until then, see you next time.